Okay, so to start out, you're probably going to want to turn off your AC. So you might want to make your car nice and cold on the inside before you do this, and also park in the shade so that it's comfortable and that the material is not getting too hot, so it's not stretching too much. And the reason you don't want your AC on when you're doing this is because once you pull this material off the backing, it's going to be flapping around as the air comes out, and you don't want any of that to get disturbed. You want to have a nice, calm working environment to work from. So you're going to want to make sure that you have all the materials that you need. You're going to need a cup holder cutout. You're going to need the center portion, which goes right here. There's an arrow to define which way it should be going, because the difference between here and here and here and here is about a 1/4 inch if off the top of my memory, and it's very hard to see that just looking at it, but there is a difference in width from the top to the bottom. And then your top piece, which is going to go up here, and that is much easier to see where which side goes up. The wider part goes to the top, wider and narrower, and it goes right there. So as you're also going to need your tools, and so right here I have a microfiber cloth, because you're going to need that to clean your center console. There's also 2 plastic scrapers. There's a larger one and then a smaller one. And these are basically just plastic razor blades, and they're pretty bendy, and they won't harm the material. You still don't want to scrape the material too much with these. These are actually for the detailing work. And then you have a lens wipe, and the reason you want to use a lens wipe, you could also use a automotive glass cleaner. Just make sure that it basically has isopropyl alcohol in it, 70% or 99%, and this is just to clean the surface before you apply the wrap, to get off any oils that are there. Make sure you don't get it anywhere else on the car. I have tested it on every surface of the car, and it doesn't make a noticeable damage getting wiped once, but over time, probably not a good idea to wipe these over every surface. But it's completely safe on the center console portion, because it's a hard, shiny plastic. And so these are perfect for cleaning the center console before you apply the wrap. And as you can see, I already have a wrap applied to my center console here. So I'm going to have to pull that off before I apply this brushed metal center console. So let's move this out of the way. So now that I have that off, this doesn't leave residue, but if you look at the tech sheet, it says less than 20% residue, even though it says no residue at all. So while I could apply directly over this after I've just pulled it off, I'm still going to clean it with my my lens wipe here, alcohol wipe, and that's going to clean up any oils or any residue from the previous install here. Or if you just got the car, you're still going to want to do this because you want a nice clean surface to work off of. So there we go. That's clean. Now, another important thing, even though your surface is now clean, you may still have some dust on it. So you want to get this cleaned up with a good microfiber cloth, and just make sure you get off any dust that's left on, and this will also dry up if there's anything left from the previous step, which was the cloth or the wipe. But the wipe dries up pretty quickly, so you probably won't have that. You're just trying to get any residual dust that may be left on the surface so you have a nice area to work from. So Now that that is done, let's make sure that we have our tools that are needed, which is you have a razor blade, which you don't need at this step. You have your plastic razor blade, and somewhere around here, yes, over here, I have my larger plastic scraper blade. So what I'm going to do first is the cup holder. And the reason that I do a cup holder first is this is the most difficult install here, and it's actually very easy, but I like to get it out of the way first because it's a good momentum for getting the rest of it done. And so as you'll see, I have two here. That's just so if I mess up with one of them, I have an extra to make sure that I get the install that I want from this. And I actually don't think that I'll need the second one. Maybe you do, but it's a good idea to have it available so that, you know, if you get frustrated, if you're like, oh my gosh, I ruined this, and it's really hard to ruin this. I think actually almost anybody can do this. That if you do feel like, oh my gosh, I ruined it, I creased it up, I bunched it up into a ball, there's no way I'm ever going to get this fixed, well, you have another one. So easy enough to go from there. So when you're installing this one, I like to close this, or open it rather, and I'll show you the way that we want to handle this. So the most important thing to keep in mind with the center console, the cup holder wrap, is that these areas here are cut to size. And any of these wraps are semi-stretchy. You know, you can, you can pull on them. So we don't want to tug on this area at all. And so you want to be really careful when you're pulling it up. When you start peeling it up from this backing, once you start to get to this area, you can't pull so much, because what'll happen is as you get to the edge, it'll give way and you'll be jerking against these two fine lines here, and you don't want to stretch these because you're not going to get the cup holder the way that you want it if you stretch these out. The same goes for the back. And also, once you get it down, if you're repositioning some of the materials, don't tug on it too much, because sometimes it'll give way and then you're going to end up pulling on these again. So what we want to do, let me close that, is we want to pull this up a little bit just to get it loose from the backing. And this is going to get us ready to be able to pull this up without having to tug on it too much. Because what we don't want to do is tug on it. So loosen that up, let it fall back down. Do the same from the bottom. And so as you approach this area, you don't want to be tugging too much. So now I think we're ready. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this off. And I actually like this area right here. Just go really slowly. And don't tug on this part too much. So, hold it up like that. Pull up from here. We got it off of the material there. And it's okay that it folded over on itself here. What you don't want to happen is for it to, for the sticky part to make contact with each other, because then you're going to have a really hard time from that point on getting them apart, and you're going to end up stretching the material. So now that we've gotten it off, we're not going to pull on it too much. We're just going to move it into position over the console. We're going to just kind of drop it into place like so, really slowly. You don't want to press down on it yet. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to align this center leading edge here on the cup holder. And this is the most important thing to get aligned, because everything else is based off of this. All of the other angles, everything else that's going to happen is based off of how this is aligned. And once you get it into place, you can kind of just push on it a little bit there, and you're good. Don't mess with it. You're good there. Now, the next thing that you want to do, very slowly around these areas, because we don't want to tug on it too much. Pull that up. Now we want to align the back center of the cup holder. And so we're going to put that right there. I think it could be a little bit further over. Okay. You just want to eyeball this. It's pretty easy to get it in the spot where it looks like you have about the same amount of material on either side. Now that looks like a big mess, and you might be like, oh my gosh, I must have ruined this. Well, you haven't. Just watch out. This is going to clean up real nicely real fast. So, now what we want to work on is the sides of the cup holder. And so you're going to want to align these right up alongside the edge, right here. They're pretty easy to get into place. And once they're in place, you just don't want to pull them up again. Which, here, get it nice and, okay. So, with that one in place, and along the edge, we want to make sure that we're all the way up against the edge here. There. Okay, that's done. We can actually crease that, and we will have a nice sharp edge that goes right along this aluminum piece, and it'll fit perfectly. We don't want to pull this up again. Now that we've done that, we're good. Now, on this side, I want to pull it up a little bit. And with the, as you can see, the rest of this material pulls up so easily, and the reason that it pulls up so easily is that you don't really want to press it down on the surface that it's resting on. And if you don't press it down on the surface, then it'll come up really nicely and allow you to reposition it. So, that edge is looking pretty good. We're nicely aligned here. The edge of this part of the cup holder needs to get aligned, pulled a little bit more to the edge over here. There you go, repositioned. Push this down a little bit. We're done. So we're good here, we're good here, we're good here. The rest of this is easy. This is the hardest part, what I just did about getting this cup holder area installed. Once you get that done, everything else is gravy. And this looks like a big mess right now, but it's not. Don't worry about it. The material moves really easily and is very flexible. So what you want to do is just put a little bit of tension here and just pull it. And so here we have this edge done. And if it rides up a little bit, that's perfectly fine. We're going to tuck that in under this aluminum trim on either side. So on this side, pull it up a little bit, pull it over. Now, what you'll see is, with this 3M material, is that if you get any area that's just a little bit too bunched up, you can always just pull it up and work on it. I find that 2 fingers is the very best. I mean, yes, we have these tools to work with, but I don't like working with these tools on the surface or to push it down. 2 fingers is the very best. You get to feel the material. You get to feel the bumps. If you feel a bump that's just like being stubborn, you can always just pull it up again and slide it back down. And you just work the area. So as you can see, got a nice sharp edge here. nice and smooth. Work our way over to the edge. Push out the creases as you go. And as you can see, we're getting there. Now, as far as materials go, I'm working with the brushed black metallic right now. And I actually feel like this is one of the harder materials to work with that 3M offers. And I mean, they're all relatively easy to install. The reason that this is a little bit harder to work with is because of the shininess to it. It has a different property when you're working with it, where it's much stiffer and it's more likely to create these creases. But the creases are not a big issue because you can just tug. You just put a little bit of pressure on it, pull it up, put pressure, and you just push it back down with your fingers, and as you can see, the creases just come right out. Now, the worst thing that you can do is to get scared, is to start worrying about, oh my gosh, I ruined it. No, you didn't ruin it. Really easy to install. And almost any mistake, I mean, obviously there's a point of no return if you bunch it up too much, but almost any mistake can be fixed really simply just by pulling up the material, clearing it up, pushing it back down, and you'll get the result that you're looking for. So as you can see, I'm working out the last of the issues that I have here. A little stubborn one there. Stubborn one there. Very forgiving and easy to install. So, just finish up getting the rest of the material here. All the way nice and clean. Tug. There. Tug, tug, tug. And there. Once you get to that edge, this is gravy. This is just, you're good. You wrap the extra over. That's going to hold it in place. It'll give you a nice finish, and it's not going to come off. You have a lot of extra material here to work with to give you that edge that's going to stay in place and give you a long life out of it. So now let's work on the back part. You see, this is nice, installed, looks sharp, and very easy to do. Now, as you can see, I'm just aligning with this edge here, pulling the material. It's the same as the front part. I actually find that the front part can be a little difficult at times, but you know, overall this install is really easy. Pretty much anybody, even if they've never wrapped a car before, can probably do this because the material is so forgiving. And here you go. We're all the way at the edge. Now, once you're at this point, you want to take your bigger bullet blade, because I'm happy with where everything is installed and where it's sitting, and you're just gonna push on the material along this edge, and you're just gonna tuck any that's here under the edge. So nice and easy, go along the edge, push it in. The big one's good for this. The smaller one is also useful for this. But you just push it in, and then you have all that extra material cleaned up. On this backside, we're just going to push our material down along this edge here. And if you've ended up fighting with it a little bit, which I have in this install, you may actually end up with a little bit of extra material along this back edge, which is fine. It's just that you've stretched the material in the process of installing it, and that's normal. And so what you want to do is take your plastic scraper. You're going to want to come along this inside edge here. Just push your material into this crevice, because that's what's going to hold the material in place. So just push it along into the crevice, and then we're just going to trim off any extra. Nice and easy. No problem here. And that's why why I include plastic ones as well as metal ones in this install, is that it's going to make your life a lot easier to get things in, but not necessarily cut them. You want to like tuck things in at certain points, and so that's when these plastic razor blades come in really handy. So now along the cup holder here, around this metal edge, you're going to have some extra material. And I actually have some wrinkles right here that I'm going to want to pull out. So I'm actually going to pull up from the material at this end, just push them back down. No problem. Nice and easy, and they're gone. So what we're going to want to do is any extra material that is around this metal piece and is going to get pushed and tucked under. And the reason that there's actually extra material here is on purpose, because it makes it so while I could have cut it to fit absolutely perfectly on this, it makes the install a lot harder if you cut it perfectly without any leftover areas here, and you can't tuck it in if you do that. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it look great as you get all the way up until the metal edge, and then you tuck some in, and the little bit extra that's left after you do this, you just end up trimming. And so what you end up with is something that looks like it came from the factory, wrapped that way. So let's push it up around right in here. So we're just pushing the material into the little gap that is between the silver part and the normal console material here. And then once you've done that, you're going to want to take your razor blade, and this razor blade is wrapped like this on purpose, because you really, a razor blade in your car is a dangerous thing. You could, cut the seat, you could cut anything else. So you want to keep hold on this, and you want to put it back in a nice wax paper protector once you're done using it. So you're just going to run the razor blade really carefully, really slowly, around the edge of between the silver portion and the center console plastic piece. And this material cuts really easily with this, so you don't have to put a lot of pressure. You just have to put it on it, run it over, and run around, and then you're done there. And then over here, where we have a little bit more material, just run it around through the opening we have here. Okay, so once you get an edge on that, you just pull it up nice and easy. As you can see, it comes up, and you get a nice sharp edge here that fits the cup holder absolutely perfectly, even if your alignment wasn't perfect, because if you have this exactly the right size and you don't have a little bit of extra material around these edges, what'll happen is once you start stretching, once you start fighting with it, you're going to make other areas stretch more or curve more, and you're not going to have enough material, or you're going to have way too much. And so in one area and not enough on another. So it's actually designed to be just a little bit smaller than or a little bit bigger, encroaching more into the cup holder than what you actually need to get to the edge. And that allows us to cut it and pull out a little bit of extra and get that perfect fit. So get the edge here, just pull up, and then boom, there you go. We can tuck that in, any extra, nice and sharp, and you have a perfect install on the cup holder. There's no black showing. There's none of this shiny black showing around here. And then on this back side, right back here, we're just going to take our razor blade, and we're going to, same thing as before, we're going to run it right along the channel that we've tucked into. So just gently along the channel, don't need to press it in too much, don't need to use a lot of force. And then that extra material will come right off. And so from front to back, this is going to look like it was installed at the factory. And we're actually done with our razor blade at this point. We don't need it for to be used, so we're going to slide it right back into that wax paper and keep it safely in the center part. So there you go. There is your cup holder. And even though I was fighting with that a bit, if you messed up, you still have an extra one. So that's why it's important to have an extra one of these around. Is the last thing that you want is to get this in place and feel like, I wish it could have been better. I wish I wish I had known how the material reacted, or how I should have been playing with that, or tugging on it, and I'm not happy with the result. You have an extra one. You can always just peel it up, put it back down, no problem at all. And you're going to get to this nice, perfectly installed finish that you want from this. Now, the hard part is over. Now it's downhill from here. So let's just wipe up any extra mess that we may have made during that process. And let's wipe that a little bit with our microfiber. Nice and easy. Okay, so now we're going to do the center portion right here. And this is tricky, but it's really easy if you do it right. And so the trick on this one is you're going to want to pull off the material, okay? And it'll be really easy to install once we get it in position. So, pull the material off. We're going to want to overlap it with our cup holder by about 1/4 of an inch. Okay? Just lightly press it down. We don't need it really firmly on there, but we just need it there for this next step here. Now, you're going to want to pull this up a little bit, this part, and get this in place here. And you want to align this at this top portion. Here, let's open that up. So you're going to want to align this all the way up here. And actually, I have a little bit too much material down at the bottom. So I'm going to pull this up and replace it. We want about a 1/4 inch. I probably had closer to a 1/2 inch there. We want about a little bit too much too. Okay. About a 1/4 inch. And that doesn't have to be aligned perfectly. It should be straight. It should be mostly in place. But it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because it's not staying there. So, once you get this in place down here, you pull it up to the top here, and you tug it right up to the corners, and you're going to want to align it on both sides, okay? And pull it around this edge here. Nice and easy. And there you go. Okay. The hardest part is done here. You want this like a tent. And so it's not touching at all down in this area. Because what happens is, if you don't do it this way, is it starts to, it's very easy to get it to start to stick to different places. And then you end up with bunching areas, and you end up having to stretch a lot, and it becomes really difficult to work with. But if you make it like a tent here, you can just take 2 fingers and from the top here, go across and just work your way down from the top all the way down to the bottom, just back and forth. Nice and easy. And you'll see this goes in without any issue. You just work that tent that we made back. Okay, here we go. All the way back to this edge. And as you can see at this point, this is done. We just did it. It is absolutely perfectly down there. No creases, no wrinkles, nothing. Now, right here we have this edge here that we can pull up on. Okay. Take this off of that piece. Nice and easy here. Okay. Now, this is where our next tool, somewhere around here. And I haven't been keeping very good track of my tools. It's probably in the center. Yep, it's in the center console here. This is where this comes in handy. So we want to bring this right up to the edge here. And then what we're going to do in one quick motion is this pops forward. And there's a lip here that we want to get. So what we're going to do is we're going to push the material down onto this lip. Okay? We're going to get it onto the lip. We're going to cover that lip. Okay. Now, right here. Let's pull out our trusty razor blade. And you just slice right along that edge. Just right into that open area that you've just created. You don't want to cut this. You just want to cut this bubble of material right here that's in between. Now, you can just tuck this. You can just tuck it. But I find it easier sometimes to get a nice edge here if you just razor blade along that edge and leave the extra material here. Because what you can do also is you can free up that material and then just drop it down in. And once you do that, it's there, but it's not actually attached to anything. And there's no way back down into that crevice down there to like tuck it around. So I find to get a nice edge here to to just cut off any extra. And then with this little piece here that we have extra here, from where we've cut, just pull it up, pull it off. That's extra. You don't need it. And up on this front here, have a couple bubbles. Easy enough to pull them, straighten them, and get them nice and worked out. Curves around. Now, you're going to want to use this blade, and you just go right along the edge here, because there should be a little bit of overlap on either side, and you just want to tuck it down into the opening along the edge. And that's going to give you that nice sharp edge on the material. There you go, just tucking it around that edge to give the overlap, and then you have a nice sharp install. And it looks perfect. And you can see that was easy. We just put a line here, stretched up to our two corners to align it, and then worked back all the way back to here. Any extra, we pop it like this. You can cut off any extra material, or you can just throw it down and disconnect it from here and throw it down into the crevice. And then you get that nice perfect edge here. And so now we have our cup holder and the center installed. And we're going to move on to the next piece, which is this top part. And the top part installs very similar to the center, because they're very similar pieces within the car. You're just going to pop this center piece out of the way, and then to install the top portion, which we have here, this is very easy to install. You just have to follow this one tip that I'm going to give you on how to align this properly, so that you don't end up having to work it too much. So we're going to peel this off, and it's going to be super easy to install this. I'll show you in just a minute. Okay, so we're just going to lay this down with the sticky part up, okay? And what we're going to do is we are going to just get it nice and lined up. Okay, center it right along the edge of this edge of the center portion. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring it can be pretty difficult to unstick your fingers from this. Okay. So we're going to bring this down, and we're going to try to just barely put a lip on this back portion right here. You can see there, we should have just barely on the underside portion here, just stuck, okay? And then you should just see just a little tip here and a little tip here. They should be both the same distance. And if you have that, you're golden. All you have to do is slide this up along this edge up until this point. Once you've done that, you're just going to close this, okay? And then you're going to take these two up here, and just the same principle that we used on the center portion, you're going to bring them right up to the top edges, and you're going to stick them down up at the top. Now, you have your little tent, and you just, with two fingers, down from the top, back and forth, just bring the material down and press it onto the surface. So there's going to be a little bit of extra material on either side. We want that. That's actually going to end up wrapping around the sides. So don't worry about that. Bring it down, all the way down. have an air bubble here, but that's not a problem, because what we're going to do now that this is done, like we're pretty much done here, is we're gonna pop this, and then we can pull up a little bit from here, from the bottom, pull up from where we started from, a little bit. Work your edge along. What you're just going to do is disconnect it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pull out that little bit of extra material that created that air bubble. So push that down as you get to the edge, right up, right along. Okay, just push this back down and around like it was. Okay. Okay. Now, these edges, you're just going to want to push down on them, wrap them around the edge, nice and clean. Up at the top, it's harder to get your fingers there, so you just use your wider plastic blade and push it down. So push it down right here, wrap it around that edge. And so there we go. We have our first piece, our center piece, and our top piece all installed. You can work on this, get that nice and perfect. We have them all installed. If there's a little bit of extra material, we can go back to our trusty razor blade. And there should be a little bit of extra material on this edge here, and you can always just trim that off. Just boom, knock it right off. That extra gives a nice sharp edge here, and there, all nice and done. You can do the same over here. So just a little bit of a edge that you want to get as it goes around the corner. Bring that off, and we're done. So there you go. The entire install should take you between 30 and 45 minutes. It may, if you're struggling a little bit, it may take closer to an hour. Doesn't really matter how much time it takes you to install this, because once you're installed, and it is the way that you want it to be, you're good. So take as much time as you need. Don't try to rush. If it's just not working for you, this is not an activity that you want to perform when you're stressed. It's not an activity you want to perform when you're in a hurry. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoy your center console wrap, because it's going to look great, and you're going to enjoy it that you installed this. So that's definitely what we want. That's what we're going for, is for you to feel wonderful about the work that you did installing this into your own car and making your car look the way that you want it to look. So customization is not one of Tesla's strong points, but we want you to be able to customize your car, and we want you to feel good about that, and we want you to get the results that you want out of the material and the install that you go for. So thanks a lot, guys. If you purchased one of our kits, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it. If you have any issues, just contact us and we'll get it sorted out. We want to make sure that you get the product that you were looking for, that you get it installed, that you're happy with the results, and that your car looks great, because that's what everybody wants. They want their car to look great, and that's what we want for you. We want your car to look great.